Hey GolfPass, I'm Ballard. There's a mistake that I see a lot of players make where they mix mash chipping versus pitching. So you end up using a chipping technique when you're hitting a pitch, or a pitching technique when you're using a chip, and it just makes it harder than heck to hit a good shot. Let's go through it because there is some differences in the way you play these shots, the way you set up, the way you use your club face, slight variations in that can make a world of difference in making it easy for you. Let's start with the chip because that's the easiest one. That's what I'd use on 90% of my shots when I can. Here where I got plenty of ground to roll it on, I want to get this ball pretty low. I want to get it on the turf with as little spin as possible. That way it can roll out as long as possible. So here I'm using a 9-iron. You can use anything from an 8-iron all the way up to a pitching wedge. I really wouldn't use a sand wedge or a lob wedge when doing chipping technique. I'd go ahead and pitch when I'm doing that. Now the first thing is, and this is a big mistake I see a lot of players make, is they set up with the club flat on the ground. So you notice the shaft angle here is my normal angle of the shaft. What I actually want to do is I want to go ahead and stand the shaft up a little bit more vertical like this. Now that's exaggerated, but a few degrees like that, what it does is it pulls the heel off the turf, and now it makes it glide through the turf a little bit easier. So that leading edge is less likely to stick in the turf and kind of chunk it. You know, you're not going to have very many that do that and kind of chunk down in the ground when this happens. So that's the first piece. I'd stand it up just a little bit. I want my feet really close together when I'm doing this, and I want my toes angled just a little bit toward the target. Now when I chip or pitch, this is another big thing that a lot of players get wrong. You have to move the knees. A lot of people have been told to set up with the feet square and do this kind of putting stroke style motion here where I don't move the knees at all. Well, in reality, when I look at pros, even when they say they're doing that, they're really not doing that. They're getting their feet a little closer than a putting stance, and as they go back and through, they're letting their knees pivot a little bit. My knees don't pivot in a putting stance. My knees do pivot in both chips and pitches. So I'm going to set up with the face square here. I'm going to get the hands just a little bit in front of the golf ball. That way it takes a little loft off, makes it easy to make that clean contact. Hands up, feet close together, and then from here I'm going to feel like I pivot my body just like I'm tossing that ball or rolling it on the ground. It's really probably the easiest shot that you can have in golf. There's not much way that you can mess it up. It's all about getting the right distance control when you're hitting that type of a shot. So very, very basic. Now a pitch shot's a little bit cooler, I gotta be honest with you. When you see the pros hit them and they have a ton of spin on them, the ball flies up there or it gets a little bit higher in the air, that's a pitch shot. Now, I would never pitch it from this position here. It's just no reason to. I would putt when I can putt. If I can't putt, I would chip. If I can't chip, then I would pitch. So I'm always gonna chip like I just did there unless I don't have enough room. Let's say there was a bunker here between me and the hole and I had to hit it over that bunker and still not get it to roll. Well, I couldn't hit my 9-iron anymore. I'm gonna use a sand wedge or a lob wedge here. Now there's a few key variations. Here, I can still have my shaft a little bit more vertical, but it's not quite as important. The reason for that is I'm gonna be moving a little bit faster and it's not gonna dig as much because my face is gonna be a little bit more open too. You see, when I set up with a chip, my face is square. And when I set up with a pitch, I go ahead and open the face about 10 or 15 degrees, and that exposes a little bit more bounce on the bottom of this club. So when that bounce is exposed, it's gonna glide through the turf and it's not gonna catch a leading edge as likely with that. So I have the face a little bit open. Here I'm gonna go ahead and angle my feet even more toward the target. I'm gonna feel like my lead foot is about 45 degrees in front. My back foot is about 10, 15 degrees angled in front. So I'm really feeling like I'm not square. That's the worst thing you can do when you're pitching. I want to go ahead and open my body up there a little bit. I want to go ahead and feel like I pivot through this shot and I'm almost chasing down after it. The worst thing you can do when you're pitching, and I see a lot of players do this, is they fall back this way. When you do that, this club's going to dig in behind the golf ball, or if you miss the ground, you're going to come up and hit it thin. You want to feel like you're open, your chest is in front, everything's leaning toward the target, and then you pivot through there just like you did with your chip shots. So let me go ahead and hit one. Now I flew it a little bit farther, and I could even hit it a little bit farther than that, but that's not a bad shot at all. Definitely consistent there. And if I want to get a little more action on it, meaning fly it a little farther, hit it a little bit higher, the only thing I'm going to do different is I'm going to get a little bit more wrist set in the backswing. With that chipping stroke, I didn't get a lot of wrist set. I was just kind of rocking back and through like this. With this pitch shot, if I want to get a little more spin on it, a little bit higher loft, I can go ahead and get a little hand action on there and get a little bit more speed. I'm also going to open the face just a little bit more when I do that. And now, there we go. So that one lofted up in the air, landed really, really soft. And again, that's a more fine-tuned shot. That's a shot that's a little bit more difficult. If you can putt it, putt it. If you can't putt it, chip it. If you can't chip it, pitch it. But if you use the right technique, all three of them are going to be pretty daggone easy.